And as we sit here, just quietly for a few moments, visualize this web of golden light, angelic energy, that we each connect to through our master crystal, through the attunements. And we are one collective consciousness. A truly global community that come together. And you are all so very, very welcome. And I want to honor each of you for bringing yourself here, for bringing your energy here, for bringing you here. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have 80 people gathered together from all around the world. I think we can easily, be grateful to other people, but I invite you to feel the gratitude. I express gratitude to each of you for being here. So please open your eyes. And I know there's lots of you who I haven't said a personal hello to. So you can, hello, 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 hello. So I feel to follow the format that we've done before. And the format that we've followed in the past is to have for me to kind of say a few words about what I feel is appropriate for this time. And also it's very much about what has been coming up. And I was asked on Friday what I thought I was going to talk about, and I didn't know. I got some ideas, and it's what kind of comes very fresh to the moment, really. And then we'll do a meditation, a group healing together, and then I'll offer the space for questions. I really want to flag up a talk, a video, a presentation that I listened to between 4 and 6 o'clock today. It was Sean Stone, facilitating an interview with David Icke, and it was superb. And I will put the link in the chat. There was 7,000 people listening, and I mean, on Sasha Stone's site, it actually closed down. It was overwhelmed, and it went on to another site. They had a backup plan as well. And it was absolutely precious and absolutely beautiful what was said. And I really do, a lot of things were covered, and I really do invite you to take that time. And, yes, it's 2 hours, so divide it up. So I met David Icke right at the very, very beginning, when he was first traveling around the UK, doing little talks in little towns. And I think there was about 15 of us in the meeting, and went up, obviously invited everyone to go and talk to him at the end. And it was just a visiting speaker. We didn't know that he would be a world famous person at that time. And had a chat with him, and he gave us a hug, and it was probably the most loving hug you can imagine. It was just deep, deep love and gentleness. It was beautiful. And I know he's had a lot of different reputations, and he himself has gone through an amazing journey. But he's arrived now, I feel, at a place where he he was talking from a most beautiful level of consciousness. And it absolutely gelled and resonated with what we've been saying and what we've been sharing over the last few weeks. So I want to kind of focus on this. And his primary message was that it is up to us, it's up to each individual to connect to, react from, live, well, not react, live from that soul self, that love self, not the story self, not the personality self. And he talked about this identity self. I'm white, I'm female, I run workshops, I live in Scotland, I. And that's the story. And it's of absolutely no consequence. And it's not an identity. It's a story. And I can tell the story in lots of different ways. And it's still just a story. And who we really are is that can watch the story, that can notice the story, that is that love, that unconditional love self, that soul self, all of these words that we can use. And when we transfer our identity to that other, this real self, that you were, that what we were, that I was before our parents were born, before our grandparents were born, that we were before we're going to die, outside of space and time, that doesn't change, that is our unique divine expression. And the answer to everything that's going on is to constantly remind ourselves, and it often is a constant reminder, I am not the story. I am, and as the new Great Invocation says, and I will say that again when we do the meditation and the healing. But what I think is important, and what I really try to do, is to ground this theory and ground this information in really tangible, practical, accessible things. So I want to kind of tell you a couple of stories. But first of all, to say that, to witness how we respond to the external world. And how we respond to the external world is just part of our story. And it's lovely to have so many people from the United States with us, and perhaps you felt the message. But it's true, for everyone around the world, been very much focused on America. And there's been a lot of, especially people who understood more of what was actually going on the earth and who was in charge and why the stories didn't add up, and how they felt to be all this manipulation and false news and all the rest of it. A lot of people that were kind of looking into what the truth was very attached to dear old Donald Trump, and he was going to he was doing this and he was doing that, and we really wanted him to be the next president, and he was going to help with so many things, and I think it's wonderful that he didn't get re-elected. We were creating another external savior, and if he is this very perceptive, very intelligent, very capable person, then I don't know, perhaps he thought it was a good idea not to get re-elected, because we were depending on something outside of ourselves to sort things out. And that absolutely is not, it's not going to happen that way. And yes, certain things that are happening, that are changing the global energy, are supporting us and making it easier. But it is our it's this angelic Reiki healing theory. Healing is connection to the soul self, the unconditional love self, the non-story self. And it isn't about necessarily being connected to that and being perfect and good all the time, etc. It's just about being aware of that is who we really are, and to honor self-healing, perhaps group healing, the healing that we're doing tonight, as our duty, our job to reconnect to who we really are. And that is seeding that in the collective consciousness. And just to illustrate a little bit more about how it works, and the story that I sometimes share in workshops, and just going back to how great it, whatever side you're on, whether it's Biden or Trump or whatever, but nature is that often us humans only change when things, there is a real demand that we change. And we love doing what we normally do, and we love staying in our own comfort zone and have our own ideas, and we believe that what we think is good and right and all the rest of it. And the story that I share in workshops is it's the shoe story. And I'm sorry, guys, it's a bit girly, but here we are. You might even have done the same thing. So the story is, and sorry those that already know it, is that say that we're going to we've got a beautiful outfit, it's our favorite one, and we eventually find the perfect shoes that are it's the right color, right design, got the perfect shoes. But when we tried them on, we realized that they're perhaps just a little bit too small, but it'll be all right, it'll be fine, they're just perfect, it's bound to be okay. So we buy them and enjoy wearing them, but after a whole evening walking around in them, they're really quite hurting. So we take them off, and but the next time we want to wear them, we decide that it will be okay. And yes, they did hurt a bit last time, but it wasn't really that much. And they're just so lovely, and they fit, and you enjoy wearing them. So we wear them again. And the same story, they hurt, but it's not too much, and I can sit down and relieve my feet, and it'll be all right. And so of course, what happens again is that go out again, and we realize that actually they are really, really hurting. So a friend says, well, actually, I've got a plaster could put round your toe that's hurting. Oh, thank you. I'll put a plaster around it. And I've actually got a painkiller. So I can give you this painkiller so you won't feel it. Oh, fantastic. Can really enjoy my evening until the blood starts running from the toe. And then we get it. Those shoes don't fit. And that is where we are being taken now. And this is what will wake people up to the fact, to what it's like here, and the manipulation and the control, and that there is so much that is not, that we live with, and is not here to support us, care for us, and make this earth good and beautiful for us. It's the opposite. So do invite you to look at look at what's not working for you. But also the other part of this is to welcome the pain that might come. So another story, and this is something that happened for me over the last few days. So there was something that happened that created for me absolute awful disappointment. Somebody had built something in the garden for me. It was a beautiful little building, carefully done, done. It was it's more of a work of art. The wood had been cut beautifully, and it was beautifully designed, and a lot of time and effort had gone into it. And then when it was finished, there was something basically wrong. It just didn't work. And I just felt so much for the person that had put all this care and effort into making it. And I felt how upset, mortified they must feel. And I felt so disappointed and, etc. I got into the story, but tried all the time to actually observe I was in the story. I was in the story of disappointment. I was in the story of feeling other people's disappointment and their story. And the story possessed me for a little bit of time. And it was true. It was awful, but managed to keep that part of me observing that Christine was having a story. And the story didn't, the hook, the tentacles of it, the power, the emotion of it, as I stayed observing it, slowly faded. And then I could then take my identity self back to that I really am, watching a Christine in a story, instead of the Christine of disappointment being the identity self. And that's our job. Our job is not to be perfect, because that's not going to happen. But it's a choice of where we land, what we decide the identity self is. And that is really what we're being invited to do. And it's interesting that when it really hurts, like the shoes, then that is the trigger that we don't want to be there. And this is absolutely the essence of an angelic Reiki healing, not to rescue, not to improve ourselves or someone else, not to make that better, but to awaken and deepen that connection to the soul self, that is the true self, the loving self, the one that disconnects from the drama and the story and can watch it. It's going to happen. And there might be something in a month's time where I get disappointed again. But will I lose myself and get as deep into the story? No. And this work is a bit like weight training. Each time we disconnect from the story and go back into the self that can watch the story, and the identity transfers to that wise, unconditional, loving observer, soul, spiritual self. And the more we pull back into that, then the stronger that gets. So it's about welcoming the painful shoes that'll teach us to just look after ourselves, to love ourselves more. And we have so much of a tendency to find ourselves, to love ourselves and find ourselves acceptable and improved, and that's much easier to love, is the way that we are. And the thought came to me this week of how if there was I live near Glasgow, and there's always been lots of street people living on the street and begging. And it's what we do is see somebody homeless begging on the street, can say, they're not looking after themselves in all sorts of criteria, they're a failure, but we don't see that. Just feel compassion for where they are and give them something and feel that compassion. We don't say, like we can often say to ourselves, well, when you've improved, when you pulled yourself together, I'll give you something. We'd never do that to a homeless person on the street, but we do it to ourselves. When you're better, when you've pulled yourself together, as my father used to say, then then you're good, then you're acceptable, then you're worthwhile. And I think we're trained to do that, to see the failure that we are and make it wrong. So we kind of do a double whammy on ourselves. And also to say that, so our whole purpose, what we're trying to do, is live a more spiritual life. And I just wanted to say a little bit about a perception of being spiritual, and and to say that it's not about being good. And one of the things I intended to do, but I actually have forgotten, is to find a list of really, really spiritual people. And these are mostly people in the United States that have started very well-known ashrams and spiritual movements, and Shambhala is one of them in that movement in the United States. And these are famous people that have started these beautiful spiritual places. And there's a fabulous presentation by, trying to remember his name, Mate. I can't remember his first name, but I'm sure you'll know who I am. And he just talks through all of these. And out of the 4 that he talks about, 3 were paedophiles and 1 was an alcoholic. But they were incredibly spiritual. They meditated for hours. They'd created an ashram. They were, and it was a facade. So spiritual is that process of disconnecting from the story self, knowing that one is a spirit, a divine spirit, not an embodied emotional story. And also wanted to say that, there are certain things that are spiritual practices, and I think it's really important that we each adopt our own spiritual practice that's going to support us. And that the one that, of course, comes into mind first is meditation. And I bet there's a lot of you there, all of us here, if we to kind of do a hands up of how many people think they should meditate but never quite get round to it. And I'm sure that resonates with quite a few of you. And there's this theoretical image of doing it once or twice a day for 20 minutes and etc. And then there's, it's this should. Meditation or any spiritual practice is when we are not in the story. And it isn't. So often there's this perception that's put out that of somebody who meditates a lot is a very spiritual person. No, not necessarily at all.
Do your work.
And I think it's important to not to not have an opinion and not criticize ourselves if we don't do the things that we should do. And as I think I've said before, I find that a practical thing like working with the 4 directions is a much more accessible, enjoyable. I learn a lot, etc. And yes, the workshop that I'll do on that is about the weekend of the 21st of February. Just one day, the Sunday. So I'll be sending information out about that, and just to give you access to other kind of resources and practices. So if you've any questions around any of that, please just kind of keep a sense of them, and we'll come back to them. So just we'll do a meditation together, And I'm not going to do the full opening up of the space, but I will do a little part of it. And so, yes, I think we'll just go straight into that.